If you love to be remembered as the person who gives the best birthday gifts, I'm here to tell you that 1-800-Flowers.com is your ultimate birthday gifting destination. 1-800-Flowers has thoughtful and artfully created options that are guaranteed to deliver the best birthday surprise. Shop thousands of unique gifts at 1-800-Flowers.com for exclusive offers and great values. To order today, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in.
Hello, guys, and welcome back to What's Up Talk, the documentary review podcast. I am your host, Gemma Delaney, and as always, we're coming to you from County Wexford in Ireland. And as always, you can find us on social media. We are at What's Up Doc Podcast. That's on Instagram and on Facebook and on the Twitter box. We are on that as well, although I rarely use it. We are at What's Up Doc Pod. Look, we're coming to you in strange fucking times. It's just insane. It's just insane. I try and keep kind of what's going on in the world and politics and shit out of this podcast, but like at the end of the day, I am a documentary review podcast and primarily a true crime documentary review podcast. And if you do follow me on social media, you know I've been very vocal about what's going on over in America. And I say America, but like, let's be fucking honest, it's going on everywhere. So I have been quite vocal about that. And I will continue to be so. So it seems weird to do the first podcast since all the shit hit the fan over there regarding, you know, obviously George Floyd and the riots and everything and not address it. So I had, again, if you follow me on social media, you'll already know this. I did actually have a podcast prepared. I'm probably about a week or 10 days later than what I had hoped to be, but I did have a podcast prepared. It was one by request. It was about Time, the Kalief Browder story, and it just, I don't know, just didn't seem right to release it in the wake of everything that was going on. I would hate for people to think that I was, you know, capitalizing on that. I don't make a penny from this podcast, so I don't know how I would be anyway. But you know, like people put two and two together and make fucking 90 to 93, like. So I didn't release it. I probably will release it, you know, maybe over the next coming weeks or so. But I'm aware of the fact that it's sensitive and it's triggering, and you know there are the people who will say that I'm jumping on the bandwagon or whatever, and like, you know, there's the fear of saying fucking anything, really, isn't there? As a white person, because I don't know about you, but I anyway definitely. I want to be on the right side of history with all of this and, you know, look back and say that I did the right thing and I said the right thing. And again, if you do follow the podcast, you'll know that like social injustice, I always say it, social injustice is my fucking jam. I hate that shit. But also I seek it out in terms of documentaries and things like that. And that's what I primarily like to view myself in terms of documentaries. So it's the kind of thing I would have done anyway. I've done a podcast about 13th before. Obviously, that's the Ava DuVernay one, about just, you know, the history of racial segregation in America. And as I said before, is a really good idiot's guide to, you know, why you should care and what's going on over there. For people outside of the country and for fucking people inside of the country as well. They could do with a good education, I'd say. But yeah, look, that's where I'm at. I'm vehemently, you know, in favor of these protests and riots. And, you know, as I've said again, if you follow me on social media, you will have heard me saying this. I hope they don't stop till they implement real change. I hope they fucking burn the place to the ground. I'm so passionate about it. And, you know, I think that's the only way. That's the only way at some point you can get change is through force. You know, if you try it, you know, softly and peaceful for a while, fuck it, you know, you have to try a bit of force. And yeah, look, like I said, it would feel weird starting a podcast or having a podcast with all this shit going on and not even addressing it on any level. So I will be releasing podcasts about documentaries, about the Black Lives Matter movement, and like I said, things that will educate us all on the history, as I have done before. I'll do them periodically. I haven't decided when. Like I said, I don't want the feeling that I'm jumping on this fucking bandwagon for my own gain when, like I said, that's not the case, and I don't make any fucking money out of this anyway. It's just purely a hobby. But anyway, look, that's the rant. I just said I get that out of the way first of all. And no, today's podcast is not about anything, with regards racial segregation or so the Black Lives Matter movement, but I'll cover them in upcoming episodes. Today's episode, I have been waiting for this for so fucking long. I hate the way Netflix does this. Netflix US versus, European or UK Netflix, releasing things on one and not the other. And if you haven't already guessed it, I am, of course, talking about today's hot new release, Roll Red Roll. It's a 2018 documentary. It was directed by Nancy Schwartzman, who I've got to be honest with you, before this documentary, I had never heard of. So she also did a documentary called The Line, which I am 100% after looking into it, going to be, trying to suss this one out as well, trying to find a link for it online. It does seem to be quite difficult to find one in Ireland though. But yeah, Nancy Schwartzman is the director of this documentary, and this documentary, Roll Red Roll, and her previous one that I mentioned, The Line, have actually both been used as educational tools. And as I go further into the podcast and the review of this documentary, you will see why, rightly fucking so. So in terms of an intended audience, I would say everyone and anyone from 12, 13 upwards. Again, even maybe younger, depending on your child's maturity level. It does have very hard-hitting stuff in it. I should also stipulate, but for example, I've got a nearly 15-year-old. I would definitely let her watch this because it's educational. And sometimes you can't hide children from everything. It's better off to let them know what's going on in the world. So look, this documentary, it opens up a narrative with men, women, teenagers, kids, about rape culture, about peer pressure, about victim blaming, and what's also known as the bystander effect. I'll go into that in greater detail if you haven't heard of that one before, but nearly the fucking name is self-explanatory. So Schwartzman herself, as I've done a bit of research, she is a rape survivor. And in her first documentary that I mentioned earlier, The Line, she actually confronts her rapist on camera. So this has, I suppose, almost become a vocation for her. The confronting of rapists and, perpetrators of sexual attacks, and the confronting of their crimes, and, the addressing of the world's treatment of and reaction to them as a whole, So in terms, I always go through my prior knowledge of the subject. So really, it's nearly always the same for me. If I hear about a documentary and I like the sound of it, I won't do any research into it, which might sound bizarre, but bear with me, right? It's to me, it's like going to see a movie, I don't want any spoilers. I don't want to know the twists are coming. I don't want to know the result of the documentary, because obviously documentary is real life as well. So it's not just going to be a review I'm going to find online about it. It's going to be multiple articles about it, featuring spoilers, and probably telling me how the documentary ends, if it's a trial, what way the verdict went or whatever. So generally speaking, unless it's a really, really, really well-known case that I've no way of possibly avoiding, if I happen or stumble upon a documentary, I won't do any research into it. I'll watch it blindly. And I think that's the best way to do it. Maybe not, but I had heard of this documentary being obviously, on a lot of true crime forums, because I do predominantly review true crime documentaries. yeah, probably a year or maybe more ago. Yeah, it was released in 2018. A lot of those forums are American based, and somebody put up, "Oh my god, have you seen Roll Red Roll?" And I was like, "What the fuck is Roll Red Roll?" So I googled it, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's on Netflix! Brilliant!" Clicked on the link. No, it's fucking not. It's on American Netflix, clearly. Um, so I got into this conversation with this member of this true crime group that I'm on, and I was like, "No, what is it? Never heard about it." And she was like, "Oh, you know, you've probably heard of like Brock Turner and stuff like that." And again, look, if you're outside of the States, you probably have never heard of Brock Turner unless you are, you know, a diehard true crime fan as well. Google his name and prepare to be fucking sickened. But yeah, she was like, it's that kind of a, you know, local jock. There's a rape, you know, fucking witch hunt because he's the local jock, boy done good, and the, the girl's vilified. And, you know, sure, look, lads, if you know me at this stage, I was like, what? Like, fucking, you're gonna white on. Like, yes, this is my shit. This is what I like to watch. This is, even though it fucking irks me, wrecks my head, this is what I like to watch. So, yeah, I've been shiting on about this, to be fair, since it was released on the US Netflix and not over here, which absolutely wrecks my head, Netflix. And I've said this before, sort your shite out. And yeah, I just literally could not find a link to it anywhere. So I just had to wait. And then, yeah, when you get the little alerts from Netflix saying coming soon, and I got that about 6 weeks ago for this, and I was like, about fucking time. Like, I only had to wait a year and a bit for it. But yeah, I have been eagerly anticipating this documentary. So, because, as I said, I didn't have any extensive knowledge of the individual case in Roll Red Roll per se. And that is because I don't like sussing it out because I don't want any spoilers. Because I like to be just as shocked and intrigued by, you know, every twist and turn in the plot as if I'm experiencing the case in real time, you know. And look, I have, of course, like every fucking person on earth, I've heard and become aware of the rape culture that exists in America, and not just in America, in the world, and where, you know, school and college going athletes and athletes in general are committing rapes and getting away with it. And like I said, you know, America had Brock Turner. Over here in Ireland, we had the Belfast rape trial. So I was expecting a storyline along those lines. Really, you know, I didn't know the ins and outs of it. I suppose because of that, then all of my questions about this documentary prior to watching it were the specifics. You know, who, what, where, who done it. What was the community's reaction? What was America as a nation's reaction? What was the verdict? Where's the victim now? You know, that kind of thing. So, look, from the get-go, if you're going to watch this documentary, you know yourself, it's not going to be easy viewing, but I should probably start with a trigger warning, because if you are a decent, you know, normal, empathetic person, this is either going to like really upset you to the point of tears or anger you to the point of wanting to fucking murder someone. Like, it's an infuriating documentary, but I find these types of ones always are. And sure, look, isn't it great that they can invoke that kind of reaction out of us? That says it all about the story and the storytelling, really. But it begins with an audio recording taken from a video recorded on the night of the alleged rape. Gang rape, I should say. Of these teenage boys, and they're laughing. And they're saying this girl got trained. I'm doing inverted commas. I don't know why you can't see me, but trained as in, like, you know, the multiple carriages of a train. So that's like slang for, you know, signifying multiple guys on one girl. You know, a gangbang, or in this instance, a gang rape. Yeah, and you hear the voices of the boys continue saying that it was like fucking a dead body because she was non-responsive. But most chillingly, I thought, them saying over and over again, like, that girl was raped, you raped that girl, he just raped her. Saying that a rape had taken place. And they use the word rape. So they know it hasn't been consensual, but like they're laughing like the fucking hyenas out of Lion King, like, you know. Um, and then after that, that's the first kind of, you know, that's the opening seconds of the documentary. And after that, then it's very much like Aaron Lee Carr's I Love You Now Die, which we've done a previous episode about, check it out. But we see the text messages then popping up on the screen from the victim the next morning, kind of going, what the hell happened last night? I'm being told all these different things. It doesn't really show who she's sending the messages to, but just trying to get clarity about what has happened the previous night and that she is being told she was raped. So, just to backtrack a little bit, the case the documentary portrays is the 2012 rape of a 16-year-old girl at a house party, which is celebrating the impending high school football season in Steubenville, Ohio. And so Jane Doe, as she's referred to, is at a house party, and she allegedly, you know, was getting cozy with the town's quarterback, who seemingly she's, you know, been texting or Snapchatting or whatever, but they know each other in some capacity. So she's cozying up with him, they're holding hands. This is what we're told. Holding hands, maybe a bit of kissing, whatever. So yeah, she's getting cozy with the town's quarterback. That's Trent May is his name. And then the party moves to another house, which at some point, then at the second location, the girl is seen as being non-responsive. And somebody observes her, you know, vomiting outside. So there's, you know, because there's loads of kids at these parties, like 30, 40 people at these parties. So these are, you know, the various eyewitness accounts coming in that bring us through the timeline. So yeah, she vomits outside, and a number of boys, including, like I said, town quarterback Trent May, and another local football star called Malik Richardson, they are seen carrying her to a third location where the alleged gang rape occurs. So local media and social media get wind of this, and, you know, as we've just seen time and time again, they start defending their local star players. So it's pretty standard shit so far, you know. That is until a local blogger in Steubenville, she decides to do a little bit of investigating off her own bat for her blog, and she finds their social media accounts easily. She says they all have their full names, you know, that's what their tags are, that's what their usernames are. And when she finds their social media accounts, she finds multiple posts, tweets, and photographs of the victim and of the rape and about the rape. People talking about the rape, a picture of the girl, it shows this, it's pixelated out, a picture of the girl completely non-responsive, being held mid-air by her head and her feet. So like that kind of hog-tied. Yeah. And yeah, just multiple boys, including the alleged perpetrators, calling her slut, calling her sloppy, talking about how she got trained, how she got raped, and there's even a comment about how she didn't respond when one of the boys penetrated her anally. So yeah, it's just real. I don't even want to say locker room shit, because like that's condoning it, but you know, real the old boys club mentality. So this blogger then screenshots everything she's found, clever girl, writes a blog about her findings and her feelings. She is a rape survivor herself and has very fucking strong opinions on the matter. So yeah, she posts all of this shit to her blog online, and that's when the shit really hits the fan. So, in fairness, and she does say a lot of people come to the defense of the girl, but a lot don't, and continue to like do the victim blaming thing, you know, that look at her, you know, social media accounts, she dresses provocatively, you know, she's a slut, whatever. The police obviously then have to get involved, you know, and a full-scale investigation is launched. Actually, really, in this bit, I love the use of the interview and the interrogation footage of the boys and the way it's used and how it furthers the narrative. Because initially they're coming in and they're all like, "No, sir, yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir. I wasn't present, but I heard about it." And then, you know, how their stories change once, obviously, this one running the blog posts all these fucking screenshots and the jig is up. You know, it's quite obvious that they were present and they did know what was going on. Yeah, so obviously, you know, just seeing that change, even because it shows the first round of interviews versus the second round of interviews or interrogations. And it's interesting. It's interesting just to see. So then this blogger is hit with a defamation suit by one of the families for posting screenshots of statements their child made on social media about the rape. Like, yeah, only in America. So anyway, when that occurs, there's this twist, and like, again, if I'd followed this case in real time, I would have known about it, but like, it just comes out of nowhere. It's not, even if you like do a quick search online, the Wikipedia breakdown of it, it doesn't come up in it. This brilliant fucking twist that I just couldn't have foreseen coming. And yeah, it just made me even happier that I hadn't looked further into this case to have spoiled this fucking whopper. But yeah, so who decides to take this matter and this case into their own hands? None other than Anonymous, right? Like, say what you will about Anonymous. They're a great bunch of lads. Fair play to them. But great day for the parish. So yeah, fucking Anonymous, get on this. They do their thing. They rally the troops, and the next thing you know, there are protests outside the courthouse, the police station, and this fucking god-awful travesty of, you know, bullying, victim blaming, and just being horrible bastards in general is brought to the attention of the rest of America and the world. And as the spotlight then shines on Steubenville, people start sharing their stories, and you see women talking about being raped by the town football stars 50 years previously. I shit you not. So this is far from an isolated case, and there's obviously this, you know, underlying current in Steubenville. There's a quote in it actually where like the daughters of the town are offered up to the sons, and certainly to the star football players. So then we find out that a school inspector and a school coach are also being charged, you know, along with the rapists, which of course is highly unusual in these sorts of cases. So how come? And this is where the next twist comes into play. Two of the boys involved in this rape, the ones, what I mentioned, one of them, Mays, and then the other guy, Anthony, his surname eludes me now, Anthony something or other. But two of those boys involved in this rape were also named in the alleged rape just 4 months previously in April. So this documentary Red Roll covers a rape in August of 2012. Just 4 months previously in April, these two boys were also named in the rape of a 14-year-old girl. 14, you heard me. The girl refused to take things any further because of the bullying and just like torrent of abuse that she was subjected to in the wake of her rape. Same sort of thing as the victim in Red Roll, you know, photographs, posts and tweets online calling her a slut and a whore. The adults were made aware of this and nothing was done because, again, these boys are local celebrities. So, yeah, that's a nice little twist in there as well. Look, obviously, you can tell by my reaction there, Anonymous getting involved and just blowing the whole fucking thing open and not letting the town bury it particularly tickled me, particularly delighted me, because you really get a sense that they were about to do it, you know, and this is, you'll see it when you watch the documentary, is that this case wasn't gaining traction. It wasn't been reported in the town. the town and its media were just going to bury this and make it go away. And like I said, it does seem they have somewhat of a history of doing it in this particular town. And look, I'm sure it's not an isolated incident in that town. Towns across America, towns across the world are doing it since, time began, I'm sure. But yeah, so that was probably my favourite bit, I'd say. And you just couldn't have fucking seen it. Anonymous, like, come on. And then you cast your mind back as well. Like, this was a time when Anonymous were really doing their thing. Like, they've kind of gone quiet now. I know, they released a video there in the wake of George Floyd's murder and that, and it's the first time we've kind of seen them in a while. But, cast your mind back to, 2012. They were really on the ball. They were fucking hacking every government's, computer system and shutting it down and creating riots and creating protests. And, remember Coney? I digress. But anyway, so that was definitely by far my favorite part of the documentary, and just like a really needed boost, because it's a tough story and it's a heavy story, and like I'm always saying, there needs to be light with the shade, because if not, it's just like fucking depressing, and life is depressing enough. And don't get me wrong, it's a real life and a real story, but yeah, like it was just great to have, they're nearly the Batman in this story. Do you know what I mean? Coming in and standing up for the girl whose name has been dragged through the fucking mud. So that was my favorite bit. Yeah, like, and the town's ability and willingness to just bury this, 16-year-old kids after been raped, gang raped. And they were, about to make shit of this girl's name and bury the wrongdoing or minimize the wrongdoing of the boys. As I mentioned earlier in the podcast, this documentary also on more than one occasion discusses the problem as a society that we have with the bystander effect. So like I said, you may not have heard of it, but it's fairly self-explanatory. And, that's just that there's maybe a situation of social injustice or an attack or, sexual assault, whatever, occurring in front of you, and you have an opportunity to intervene and you don't. I guess the most famous of that was, if you've seen the documentary, The Witness. So that's kind of a famous case about that. But yeah, so it just talks about that, the bystander effect, and how there were a number of points along the timeline of events that night that if just one of the party goers or one of her school friends, or even the boys' school friends, had the bravery to intervene, the girl would not have been raped. That she was raped because the boys were opportunistic and because, they were local celebrities, nobody went against them. There's actually a really nice scene with the detective, I think is Detective Regard, probably pronouncing that wrong, where he says that, all the situation needed was for one of the bystanders to step up and be a hero, and when he's saying that, it shows a little montage of like all these high school students been interviewed in the police interrogation room, girls, boys, black, white, yeah, and like just none of them did. Like there isn't really anything I didn't like about this documentary. I really, really enjoyed it, so much so, as I said, I am going to hunt out her other one, The Line, if I can find a book and a link for it. I think as a rape survivor herself, who better really to direct a documentary on the subject and, to know how to effectively narrate that type of story and negate that type of story. And this story is just like, it's just so horrendous. It tells itself really anyway, if I'm really, really like nitpicking, trying to find something wrong with it, I personally always like a follow-up. I like everything wrapped up in a nice little bow by the end of it, where the victim is and how they're doing. Now, I get that because obviously she's referred to as Jane Doe throughout this, and there needs to be anonymity for rape victims. I get that you wouldn't be able to give an in-depth update. I just would have loved even for it to end with, you know, Jane Doe is, I don't know, something generic like currently studying to become a teacher. You know, just whatever, just that she's okay. I'm nosy. I like to know. Both boys were convicted. Spoiler alert. And sentenced to a year. A year in a facility for juveniles, and because they were also both minors along with the girl. Unfortunately, the other boys involved in the gang rape were not prosecuted. They got immunity because they gave testimonies against Mays and Richmond, including the guy who was named in the rape of the 14-year-old as well. So I was a bit of a kick in the gut at the end, but sure, look, you know, I get the judicial system as well. Isn't it better to get some of them than none of them? And I just hope that cunt is a pariah in his town. Honest to God, I hope they bet the shite out of him. Would I recommend it? Abso-fucking-lutely. I've been waiting on this for so long, and it did not disappoint. You probably got from my tone, it is hard to watch at times. Absolutely. But look, documentaries are as much, if not completely, for the purpose of education as entertainment, and this certainly educates. You can see why it's used as an educational tool, why it's played in schools and that kind of thing. It's rated 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and as you can probably guess by my review, it is not hard to see why. Also, actually, when I think of it, watch out for the piece at the end where they speak to the friend of Mays and Richmond, who spoke out against his friends, who were the rapists, and he actually testified against them in the trial. So he can be heard in the background of that audio clip that I was talking about at the head of the podcast, saying like, no man, that's rape, this is fucked up, like that's, you know, it's a, you know, jailable offence kind of thing. He's just not partaking in that kind of, like I said, don't want to say locker room, but yeah, that kind of, those locker room antics. So again, like the bit about Anonymous, it's this really much needed uplifting segment in a very tough story that just makes you go, oh God, there are some good people in this fucking town. So guys, look, Roll Red Roll, it is on Netflix now. It was released this morning over here on European Netflix. It's here in the States. You've had it there for a while, you guys lucky fuckers. Watch it. It's a good one. So guys, as always, look, we have flown through the last half hour. We've come to the end of this episode of What's Up Doc. And look, as I'm always telling you, if you like me, if you like what I do, give us a review, give us a rating, give us a like, a share. You know, we're small, we're me, it's me, there's nobody fucking else, me, I am one person running this podcast, and your support means the absolute world, and you have no idea the power of star ratings on Apple Podcasts. So if you like the cut of our jib, give us an L-star rating. As always, I've been your host, Gemma Delaney. We're going to have a few more episodes coming out this week. I'm going to just pound a few out. Great terminology there. Pound a few out. And yeah, because there has been a little bit of a delay because, as I said, of everything going on in the world, it just didn't feel right releasing ones. We're going to get back into the swing of things, and with a couple of crackers coming up. So guys, that is it. Good luck, good night, God bless.
The moment you realized you were mistaking your kids for coworkers.
Okay, team, I'm taking my 15 now.
Taking 15 what?
Was the moment you knew it was time to get back to work. Let's job it up. At CareerBuilder, Our simple, customizable search tool lets you search for part-time, full-time, and even work-from-home jobs, so you can find a job that fits your lifestyle. Get started now at CareerBuilder.com.